Good afternoon. This is MGray, and hopefully what we're going to do is a short tutorial on exporting a scene out of Revit Architecture 2012 and importing that into 3ds Max and using 3ds Max as a render engine, and also using it to populate with trees and an active sun. So the first thing we're going to do to export out of Revit is we're going to go to a default 3D scene, which I already have made available here of this project, and we're going to go to the big R, and we're going to click Export, and then we're going to go to about the sixth one down. It says FBX, and we're going to click on the FBX icon. We'll navigate to where we're going to save it to, and we go ahead and click Save. And since I already have one made here, I will not be saving this with you. Just know that after you click the Save button, about the next 10 minutes will be the process of exporting the objects, and also you'll see in here it'll create a .fbm folder, which is your materials folder. So the materials that you've made within Revit will be imported in when they come into 3ds Max. So with that said, we'll be done with Revit now that we've exported that scene. Just also know a couple of tips and tricks. If you're needing to reduce your file size for some reason, or you know which shot or shots you're going to be using, you could go to your properties dialog box and you could implement a section box to reduce the area that you're looking at, which would reduce the file size also. And also just keep in mind that once you export as this FBX into 3ds Max, it is not a linked file. So once you get into 3ds Max, if you find that something is wrong, you'll have to delete that scene and in effect start over. So we'll go ahead and exit out of Revit, and as I've already pulled up 3ds Max, if we were just starting 3ds Max, we'd have a dialog box. We would want a new empty scene, and the first thing we would do is we'd go to the big M. We would click on the import, or hover over the import tab, click on the little arrow to the side, and there'll be three options there: import, merge, and replace. We want the first one, which is import, and we'll navigate to where we are at, and here is that FBX we've created earlier, and we would click open. Again, I've already done that process here, and again, once you click that open, there will be well, actually I can just go ahead and go that far with you. A new dialog box will pop up that is the current preset of Autodesk Architectural Revit, and it will give us some stats below. We want to keep everything as the default level, and then we would click OK. Again, since I've already created that scene, I will not be doing that with you. Once you click that OK, though, again, probably for the next 15 minutes will be the process of importing those objects and lights, etc. in. So just keep that in mind, that the process will take a little bit more time, a little bit more of the computer's time than your time. And now that we're doing an autosave and it cleans that up, this is kind of the default view that you'll see. And this over here is the actual scene that we'll be working in. But you'll see this, which looks like a little camera, because it is. And we'll see a 3D view, 3D. This is that default camera that we were looking at in Revit, and since we're not going to be using that camera, we can go ahead and delete that. The second thing that we're going to want to do is we have a compass with a sun, which is what this object is here. We can go ahead and click on the sun itself, and we'll see that this is sun and sky. And we'll click on the Modify tab, which is this blue object over here on the properties menu. And if we go down to position, it says manual. We actually want to click date, time, and location for this one. And we'll go ahead and click setup, which is just below that date, time, location button. And then we'll see it takes us to another dialog box. And for at this moment in time, we'll go to location and click on get location. And there's a lot of the major cities within the United States is in here, like Springfield, Missouri, per se. But what we're going to do is, this project was actually in Dallas, Texas. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate to Dallas, Texas, and I'm going to hit OK. And what it's going to do is it's going to load in the latitude and longitude of Dallas, and it'll allow us to get a little bit more of an accurate sun reading. And again, just up to the top here, we can change our hours and minutes, even down to the seconds if we needed to. But we're just going to go ahead and set this, and this is on military time. So we're going to set this to 1400 hours or 2 o'clock. Okay, so now that that's done, we'll go ahead and click on one of the, I'll zoom into one of the objects here. That was a little too close, zooming in there. And you'll see that these objects over here, there are some black orbs kind of floating around here. These are actually lights. And just know that whenever you bring most objects in from Autodesk Seek or Revit City or things like that, they're going to automatically include these IES files, which is a light file. So if we would zoom in here, we'd have a really nice lamppost and then this light on top of it. Also keep in mind that whenever you're rendering, just as you're rendering in Revit, that lights really will increase your render time. So having only the amount of lights that are as necessary really helps to increase the render times. So again, just keep that in mind. So what we're going to do is, now that we have edited the sun, we're going to drop a camera in here very quickly. I'll drop one back here, and we'll move that later. We go ahead and click on the Create tab, and we hover over here to Cameras and click on the camera itself. There's two types of cameras. We want the free, so go ahead and click on Free. What's really nice about this is for those that are of a photographic background, you do have the opportunity to manipulate some of the stock lenses that come with a camera. So I'm going to go ahead and for the time being, just click a camera, and I'll go ahead and drag that up. So now we'll see an actual, well, not that, yeah, there we go. So we'll see an actual kind of camera, but if we kind of focus in on this, there's a blue cone that comes out of the bottom of this camera, and that's actually where the camera is looking. So right now it is, roughly about 30 feet off the ground, and it's looking straight at the ground, and that's really not going to help us out too much. So there are two objects here: the select and move, which is what I use to kind of move this up and down, and then there's also the select and rotate. And so there's two major things that you would want to learn out of the select and rotate tab. So there are three main axes that you can rotate this on. You can rotate it forward and back. As you can see there, our cone kind of rotates, and we can rotate this in any direction, which will allow us some more freedom. Or we can kind of change the yaw on this and make it kind of rotate up on that axis, and we'll keep that at 0 just because that's what we want. Or we can also grab it on this third axis, and we can rotate it as you're seeing there. So what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and oh, before we go with that, now that we'll kind of see, we've kind of rotated this in an awkward direction. So if I go back and I grab the green one, it's really going to rotate it like at 45 degrees, kind of in an awkward direction. We really don't want that. So if I wanted to pull it, if I'm looking at the camera and I wanted to tilt specifically up, I would kind of have to grab in here and guess what I was doing, and I really don't want to do that. So if I click on the View tab, which is the view is that reference coordinate system. There you go. So if we click on Local, now this axis has lined up perfectly with the camera, and again this will again reference perfectly the yaw of that camera. And so now I can click on it, pull up, and it will be in kind of in the way that it needs to be. So again, I'll go ahead and the Select and Move. This is again the same way with the View and the Local, as I can move it as such, but if I wanted to pull it directly from the front of the camera, I could change this to Local, and now I could drag it in that specific direction. Okay. But I don't want to do that for this time being. I want to drag it out here into the middle of this space, and we're gonna alt around. And now we're kind of saying that according to this cone, we're kind of looking up into the middle of nothing. So we're gonna rotate that. We're gonna switch it to View for what I'm wanting to do right now, and we'll turn it around here and turn it towards this big object. And if we go up here to Perspective, we'll click on Cameras, and this new camera that we've created, Camera 001. Now you can kind of see we're looking at the top of this object. Let's say I want a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Perspective. No, sure ain't. There we go. And it's going to drag me into the middle of nowhere. Yeah, there we go, maybe. And I want Local. And we'll kind of push that down just a little bit. 5, 6, something like that. Okay. And then we'll go back to that camera. And now we've actually got a little bit more of what we want. So let's go ahead and we'll kind of give you a quick run through of the rendering part of 3ds Max. So if we click on the render setup or your F10, we want a single output, and let's just say that we want 1280 by 720, which will be a 720p image. And again, this is what's kind of nice as compared to Autodesk Revit, is that you can change the width and height to whatever pixels you need. Again, which is Revit will kind of hold you to its predetermined necessary pixels. So there'll be a handful of presets down here. If we look again in that render setup dialog box under Common, the preset tab, let's go to Mental Ray Daylighting, and it's going to pop up another dialog box that is some select presets. And we're going to go ahead and take the ones that it gives us for now. I'll go ahead and click Load, and it's going to think about it. Okay, now we're going to go to Renderer, and again, for probably a high quality image, something for a presentation, the minimum, it is set at 1/4. I would go ahead and change that to 1. And then for indirect illumination, it's going to be a custom setting. And again, if you indirect illumination, final gathering is an interesting topic within itself. So go ahead and leave it as it is. And if you would like to know more about final gathering, which is a little bit more of an in-depth subject, search on YouTube for that, because it is something that you should definitely know about. Okay, So the other thing that I would like to talk about though is under rendering, again, the exposure control. So again, it preloaded, if we scroll down in the environment tab there, an MR photographic exposure control, or a mental ray. So when we loaded this preset of daylighting, it automatically loaded an exposure control. And if you know from Autodesk Revit, you have the opportunity to change your exposure after you have rendered an object, and here you have the opportunity to do the same thing, but a little bit as before, and you'll kind of see some of these look similar, physically based lighting, but you can also, for those that are of a little bit more of a photographic mind, you have the opportunity to change some of those parameters here, or you can just simply set it to an exposure control and control it as you may be familiar with. Okay, so, and again, auto saving, it's good, I guess. We'll see. There we go, kicks in. And what we'll do is, for now, just because of, we can do any size, 640 by 480 is what it said as, and we'll go ahead and click render, and we'll see how long it takes, which it should take pretty much forever. One of the big things that you'll have to, that I mentioned earlier, is that there's those lights in there that could kill or could really increase the render time. There is an object, now that this is rendering we won't worry about it, but tools and then light lister, and you can actually turn all of those lights off, similar as you can in architectural or in Revit architecture. And it's telling me that I have missing map files, which is I'm not worried about for the time being. If we were rendering to a net render or rendering over a render farm, that would be a larger issue. But as I was saying, the light lister can become a big situation that you would have to worry about with the lights here. We'll see how long this takes to render. But you have the opportunity to turn those lights off, and we'll see. It's going through final gather right now. It's actually moving pretty good. And I would find that it actually take time, and I think the main issue would be one, because I'm on a lap that's not built for rendering, probably because of the lights that were over. Like this, I'll go ahead and cancel this, but yeah, it should take that are on a large, don't have GIs in them, or artificial lights will usually run in between anywhere from minutes. It's definitely very much of an from the render times. You would see Revit Arc compared to those for 8 hours or per night. You could get the thing in almost 30 minutes. 3ds Max. Hopefully, at least you that will give you a good starting point to be able to start to render, and also Revit architecture has one or two default trees, but because 3ds Max has a very vast tree library, you have that opportunity. You could honestly have never have the same tree twice within a scene, which would is really nice. Kind of give a level of customization into your file. So that was the big things that I wanted to cover, and hopefully you'll learn something to be able to take it and start rendering within 3ds Max. Thanks.